You met with the president very recently, opening bow at the New York Stock Exchange. What was that like? What did he say?
Well, it was amazing. I think it really put a fine point on his focus on highlighting the U.S. economy and the strength of the U.S. economy. Feels as though the pro-growth agenda is going to be something that's front and center, not just for him, but for his entire cabinet.
I can feel that in the confidence levels. Are you seeing it already in the activity levels? Do we have to wait for that?
No, we're seeing it in the activity levels. We're seeing the IPO markets start to open up. Although last year wasn't a bad year, particularly if you look at the first half of the year. We got quite a few deals out. And then you had a bunch of volatility set in because of the election. You weren't quite sure what the outcome was going to be. So a variety of deals pushed. Those deals are now getting on the road. They're making plans to IPO either in the coming days and weeks or in quarters or second half of the year. But the activity is real.
How much are companies waiting for some certainty? I mean, we're getting buffeted around by different headlines of different potential policies and tariffs that may or may not come. And is it a negotiating tool? I mean, it seems like people are saying things that they don't really understand or believe because they don't really have any of the facts. How much are people waiting for some of that to shake out before completing a deal?
You know, I think people are waiting to see some deals go, quite honestly, and to do well in this environment. If I look at our IPOs from last year, though, of all of the IPOs that list on the New York Stock Exchange last year, in aggregate, they were up 58% versus their IPO price. To me, that's the sign that the market's really open. So once you remove that uncertainty around the election, now's the time to go.
I was speaking with one bank executive who said the market's been open. This is a market that has been open, but there have been a lot of companies that don't like the price that they get when they go out there, especially if they've been hiding in the private markets and have been really elevated in terms of their valuations. Is there a growing disconnect about the need for going public at a time where companies can remain private and even be highly valued as private companies?
Liquidity, though. That's the one thing that you don't get in the private markets. Consistent, sustained, and deep liquidity. Nothing beats the liquidity of the public markets. I think the private markets, make no mistake, play an incredibly important role because not only do they fuel that next great idea when it's in its infancy, but it also is able to take a company to the point where it's public market ready. What you saw were companies rushing out 5 years ago, even in 2021, when we saw the height of IPOs, they rushed out to really take advantage of those valuations, and a lot of them weren't ready to be a public company. I think as a result of what we've seen over the last 3 years, you're going to see the companies that come to market be higher quality, know how to execute on strategy, profitability, capital returns, all of the fundamentals that make public companies successful.
When you say not public market ready, what do you mean specifically by that?
Clear strategy on where you're going with your business as opposed to throwing a bunch of spaghetti against a wall with a variety of ideas. By the way, that's super important when you're a company in its infancy because you're not sure which direction you're going to take.
Do you feel like your business structurally is challenged by what's been developing in private markets? And what do you think explains the decline that we've seen in publicly listed companies?
Well, you know, we spend a lot of time really working in partnership with the private markets. Our job is to ensure that when a company goes public, it's ready. It's able to take advantage of the depth and breadth of liquidity in the U.S. markets. So we spend a lot of time on the educational side.
How much are you seeing foreign entities looking to list in the United States at a time where there's an increasing feeling that you have a leg up if you have a more physical presence in the United States?
Yeah, we've actually executed on a variety of transitions out of domestic markets, non-U.S. markets, over to the U.S., and those companies have seen a marked valuation appreciation.
There's one country that probably is absent in that, or at least will be going forward, or could be, which is China. And I wonder how much we did see a lot of ADRs, a lot of receipts, depository receipts from Chinese companies in the United States. Do you expect that to fade, given the tensions?
You know, there have been some deals that have come to the U.S. market, but they're fewer and further between. I think as a result of economic policy and geopolitical policy between the two countries, it's still very early. Let's see how things progress in the next few months between the U.S. and China. There'll be additional clarity on that topic.
Are you confident that maybe there could be a resolution? Because the sitting president, Donald Trump, hasn't been as aggressive as some people thought he might be in his first 2 days?
I think that he is very pragmatic when it comes to considering the ramifications of geopolitical tensions.
Do you feel like people are being very careful at this particular Davos? That everyone's like, yeah, we're excited. We don't know anything, but we're excited and there's a lot of optimism. Or do you feel like people have a real concrete sense of kind of what the next year is going to look like?
I think people are optimistic in pockets. I think there is questions around, the geopolitical landscape is probably the biggest one, tariffs in particular, and obviously the knock-on effect of questions around tariffs is going to be inflation, because those two really do work hand in hand. So I'd say people are pretty optimistic, though. And even on the geopolitical side, if you look at, the deal that was done last week to release the hostages and the ceasefire in Israel, between Israel and Gaza, there is reason for optimism. There are green shoots that people are able to point to. There are data points that
positive steps already so far. I think we all hope we see more. Lynn, it's good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
See you very soon. I know. Lynn Martin there, the Nyse president from the New York Stock Exchange.